here in the United States on Saturday night. I'm going to get everything up and going. If you hear me, go ahead and let me know that you can hear me so I can see that the chat's working and everybody can hear me loud and clear. If you're jumping in, hello, guten Abend. Yes, awesome. Great to see you guys. And any ladies who might be there as well. We're going to get started here in just a couple of minutes. I'm just making sure everything's up and ready to go. Awesome. Looks like everything's going well. We'll give it a couple minutes for folks to get in, but tonight we're going to be doing the Fredericksburg part of the campaign, which includes Iuka and Perryville. Of course, these two battles are fought in the West. Iuka, I believe, was in Mississippi. Perryville, of course, was probably the biggest battle fought in the state of Kentucky during the Civil War. And as one who had a lot of family in Kentucky, I had relatives involved in the Battle of Perryville. But we're going to start with Iuka, which is a relatively small battle and should be fairly easy. You can see I've got man, I love being the Union. It's so much easier after playing Legendary and the Confederate to come to this. Hey, Twitch is going. It should definitely be, looks like it is streaming on Twitch, so you're more than welcome to watch it on Twitch. It's streaming on both at the same time. So I've got, let's see, about, my goodness, 20, almost 20, 40, so I've got about 65,000 men plus another 46 sitting in my force pool. So right now, I mean, if I threw everything in, I could have a massive army. All right, let's. Did the rednecks even have a chance in this war? Not on their own, no. They never had a chance. Their only chance was European intervention, and that was not going to happen as long as they had slavery. That's just the reality of the situation. All right, we're going to dive in. Start with the Battle of Iuka. This will be a pretty easy one. Erez, yeah, you're on the Confederate side, so yeah, it makes it a little interesting. I'll create another one. I'm doing this with William O'Hare. He and I are Gettysburg, the tide turns, one as each side, so we can do the same thing. I can create another one where you can do the opposite, and you can do the same thing back to me. How's that? So here we go. Like I said, going to be an easy one here. So it's a good time for us to kind of chat about any topic that you guys are interested in chatting about, because once we get into Fredericksburg, it's going to be a little different situation. But as far as this one goes, it's pretty straightforward. I'm just going to send a massive battle line forward and just push him out of the way. I may shift a little bit over this way because he's got some fortifications over here, and I'd rather not assault those directly. So I think we'll shift up this direction and just kind of build a nice line and just come straight across from west to east, outnumber him better than 2-1. So this is one of those battles I should be able to pretty well wipe him out. And I've got 2 units of heavy guns here, one 10-pounders, one 20-pounders. Are there these cowboy miniguns in this game? I don't think so. Well, I mean, you know, the Union did have the Sharps carbines toward the end of the war. They had a lot of those the Spencer repeaters. So they did, especially the cavalry, had a lot of repeating rifles toward the end of the Civil War. Yeah, I think the British would have been fine with supporting the South. I think the issue of slavery kind of kept them from that. But certainly, I mean, the European powers would have benefited from a fractured America. Though I wonder what that might have meant when you came to later wars like World War I. As I think the Confederacy, had they been able to win their independence, would have probably looked to the Caribbean, looked to Central and South America for expansion. So the whole landscape of the world might have been very different, and I wonder how that would have how that would have broken down when it came to the European wars of the 20th century. I understand. Make a V form and circle them, I played this one earlier just to kind of get a feel for it, since it had been a long time since I'd done it. I just did this battle. I didn't do the other 2, but I did just kind of a straightforward, just a whole big long line of assault, and it worked pretty well. I think I lost like 3,000 men and pretty much wiped out his entire army. And I have a feeling that'll be the case here as well. Yeah, I don't know where France would have stood if Britain had gone in with the South. I mean, it was a time in history where Great Britain and France had finally kind of given up with fighting each other, and I think France was more concerned with Germany at that point. And actually, I believe they had a war between France and Germany just a couple of years after the Civil War ended, something like 1871. That was kind of when Germany unified into the German Empire. I'm just going to march everybody forward, and then we'll kind of get them in line as we go. Hey, Neo-Pangean, how's it going? Hello, HOI4 Pro. Welcome, everyone. Great to have you guys here. We're going to fight through Iuka and then move on to Perryville, and then finally the big one, Fredericksburg. And I'll just tell you up front, I have absolutely no intentions of assaulting Maurice Heights. That is just not going to happen. Alright, we should start running into his skirmishers. Here we go. Yeah, obviously, the British at that point, they had their empire. They had their massive navy they were already working on. But honestly, because of the Civil War, at that point, the United States had the most advanced navy on the planet. I mean, from about 1863 on, every navy on Earth was obsolete because of the advent of the ironclads. Now, obviously, the ironclads weren't yet seaworthy at that point. They were mostly for coastal and river fighting, but that kind of quickly changed. Although it's interesting to note that it wasn't an American that invented at least the first Union ironclad, the Monitor. That was, I think he was Swedish, Ericsson. Alright, so we're going to light up these skirmishers and mounted infantry that are coming at me here. Yeah, the Franco-German War, 1870 to 71, and then the German unification, 1871. I thought that was about the time. You know, it's interesting, a lot of Napoleon's family ended up in the Western Hemisphere. In fact, Napoleon himself had been trying to, when he was finally exiled to, where was it? St. Helena, where he ended up exiled in the end. He was trying to get permission to go to the United States. And I believe like his nephew may have ended up here, and some other folks. Same thing happened with Hitler. Hitler's nephews ended up becoming American citizens, changed their last name. One of them actually was, I believe, in the U.S. Navy during World War II. Yeah, well, James, the Confederates, what they did was they raised the USS Merrimack, which had been scuttled when the United States abandoned Norfolk, the Navy Yard there. And they put the iron hull on it and renamed it the CSS Virginia. And at about the same time, the U.S. started building the Monitors. It was such a close thing that the Monitor had already set sail for Hampton Roads, where the big battle happened, before the Virginia even showed up. Because the Virginia attacked and sank, I think it was the USS Minnesota or some ship, and kind of ran off the U.S. Navy. But then the very next day after the Virginia first appeared, the Monitor appeared, and they kind of fought their famous duel there in March of 1862. Yes, the relatives of Hitler, I believe, still do live in New York. I think they're out on Long Island somewhere. And yeah, I do believe what you guys say there is right, that whether it's actually true or not about the vow not to continue the bloodline, whether it was intentional or not, I do believe it is in fact the case that none of Hitler's nephews have had children. I've always been fascinated by the relatives of famous people, even today, that are out there. Like, I believe Nikita Khrushchev, who, of course, was the famous Soviet leader. I believe one of his children or more became American citizens. Were there any development of military doctrine during the Civil War? I don't know that there was anything specific. I mean, there was the Anaconda Plan, which was a doctrine in terms of the outset, the plan to squeeze and cut off the Confederacy's ability to make war. I know that General Sherman believed very strongly in the idea of total war, that it wasn't just about going after and destroying the army. You had to destroy that nation's ability to make war, which kind of became the standard in future wars, especially in World War II. I mean, that was such a big part of World War II, was destroying Germany's ability to make war, and Japan as well. Yeah, and you know, a lot, especially on the Confederate side, a lot of the Confederate generals at the end of the Civil War were offered or even given military commands in the nations of the world and their armies. I believe there were at least a couple of Confederate generals who went to Europe, who went to even Egypt and became parts of their armies. Of course, some eventually ended up back in the U.S. Army, which is, it's one of those very strange quirks about the American Civil War, that there had been this huge war that killed like 2% of the male population of the United States. And yet immediately afterwards, some of these same folks fought side by side in the Indian Wars, and the wars to come, all the way up even to the war with Spain. So we're on the brink of the objective here. I'm just looking at the casualties. I've lost, 600 men, and he's already lost about 1,500. Many people in Germany, the Kaiserreich, yes. That would be interesting. And that's another one of those things that I really find really fascinating, is learning about who the claimants are to the various thrones. Obviously, there are people still in Russia, in Germany, who are the heirs to those dynasties. the Hohenzollerns in Germany, the Romanovs in Russia. Deus Vult, yes. Yeah, Kaiserreich's a cool mod to play on Hearts of Iron 4. A lot of people don't realize that Kaiser Wilhelm, who was the last Kaiser of Germany, was still alive when World War II broke out. I think he was in exile in, I want to say, in Holland. There's actually a movie coming out about it. About that time when Germany, when the Nazis took control of Germany, and they basically kind of sent this unit of soldiers to kind of guard the Kaiser. I think he died not long after, so he didn't see the end of the war. The Netherlands, that's what I thought. The Habsburgs, yes, the Habsburgs exist as well. I think the Romanovs are, I want to say they're German now. I don't remember, but I know what you're saying, that they're not in Russia anymore. And people forget the British royal family. I mean, they're German. They're totally German. They're about as German as you get. In fact, their dynasty name should be German, but they changed it during World War I to Windsor from the House of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. And here in the United States, a lot of us, myself included, are heavily German in our ancestry. In fact, there were probably, I know in Pennsylvania, which is where our capital was at the time, in Philadelphia, which is where my daughter is right now, there were more Germans in Pennsylvania than there were English. So yeah, this one's pretty easy. And we're going to push this as long as we can. Yeah, and of course the man who, in 1936 at least, was the king of Great Britain, of the UK, Edward VIII. He's been widely believed to be a Nazi sympathizer. Imagine Wilhelm patting Hitler on the back. I would have to guess that Hitler probably didn't think too highly of Wilhelm, just given his anger over how World War I ended. Yeah, my wife and I are both heavily of German descent. The area where I live in northeastern Ohio was settled by a lot of Germans. In fact, just to the west of where I live is Berlin Township. Alright, so these guys are running. So they were in these fortifications. It's not real fortifications. I mean, they were behind a fence. But they're running for their lives now. My men are getting exhausted, so I gotta be careful here. But you can see, I mean, really, none of my units have lost more than, let's see, Douglas, 249 men. He's been about the heaviest involved. So much easier to be the Union. So, and of course, there was a lot of folks too who settled in this country from the area of Alsace, which was kind of that long fought-over area on the border between Germany and France. Alsace-Lorraine. Yep, Smith coming from Schmidt. My wife's family is actually, Culp's Hill at Gettysburg. That's one of my wife's families. They were actually Kolb, K-O-L-B, and some of them eventually made it into Culp. But my wife's ancestors kept it as Kolb when they came here to Ohio. My last name is an anglicized version of Maurer, which was M-A-U-R-E-R, which was a German name. So they came from Germany. And names like Jäger, which is hunter in German. There's a lot of different spellings of that here in the States. Yeah, Alsace was part of Prussia. Yeah, I believe that Christian, the Danish royal family, I believe that is the direct male line of the British royal family through Prince Philip. I think he descends directly from the Danish royal family through the male line. Oh, there, somebody just said that. Yeah, yeah, Battenberg, they changed to Mountbatten, yep. Yeah, and you know what? The King of England, Kaiser Wilhelm, and Tsar Nicholas. Now, here's the thing. I believe that Nicholas and Wilhelm were related through one side, and then King George V of England and Nicholas were they weren't all three related through the same family. There were multiple connections that made them all related to each other. But if you look at a photo of George V of England and Tsar Nicholas II with their beards, and there was actually a photo where they were wearing each other's military uniforms. I mean, they looked like they could have easily been brothers. They looked a lot alike. Of course, they were both grandchildren in the same family. They were first cousins to each other. All right, so this thing's over. We're going to kind of zip along here. We'll see if we can cause some more casualties, but 1864. No, you know what? I saw a reference to that somewhere, to that Danish-Prussian War series, but I have not actually seen anything about it personally. See if we can capture some of these guys. Nah, we're going to drive them off rather than capture them. Yeah, I believe you're right. I believe George did try to bring the Romanovs to the UK. It didn't work out that way. All right, so we lost 1,400 men, inflicted about 3,500 casualties. I'm not going to brag too much about that one. That was a relatively easy battle to win. We're going to move on here. A cool game to play from that time period is Victoria. It's challenging because you have to deal with the economy and all that kind of stuff like that. All right, so I'm just looking something up here. How did this work exactly? So you had Kaiser Wilhelm II and Tsar Nicholas II were cousins, but they weren't first cousins. They were both great-great-grandchildren of Paul I of Russia. But the Kaiser was a first cousin to Nicholas's wife, Alex of Hesse, who I believe was a granddaughter of Queen Victoria. But their correspondence is fascinating because they were writing back and forth to each other right up until the moment that they went to war. Let's see here. I think I'm going to go logistics because I need to start. I've got plenty of money and men. I want to start saving up on my ammunition. And Wilhelm II and George V of Germany were both grandsons of Queen Victoria. So they were first cousins. George V's father was Edward VII, who was Victoria's eldest son. And Kaiser Wilhelm's mother was Victoria, who was the daughter of Queen Victoria. And then Tsar Nicholas was related to King George. They were first cousins through the Danish royal family. King George's mother was Alexandra of Denmark, and Alexandra's sister was Nicholas's mother. So George V and Tsar Nicholas were sons of sisters, and Kaiser Wilhelm was the son of George's aunt. So George was related to both of them. Hearts of Iron 4 next time. You know, I might do a live stream of Hearts of Iron 4 maybe earlier in the day, so it'd be easier for you to watch. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of micromanaging involved with Victoria. But it's tough, but it's a fun game to play, at least I think so. Because there was so much intermarriage between all these royal families, that's why things like hemophilia became a big part of the story for the Tsar of Russia and his children. The Weimar Republic was a terrible idea. All right, so let's get back to this here. I'm having a lot of fun talking about all this stuff, but I'm neglecting the battle here. We got Perryville. I believe we do 14 brigades in Perryville. All right, so 14 brigades it is, and I think we're on the defense on this one. Red World, Hearts of Iron 4. I have not played that one yet. I might have to check that out. Yeah, Rasputin was the guy who seemingly had the ability to heal the children who were dealing with hemophilia, and I think that was his in with them. All right, so we got to bring a few more brigades into this thing. I think we might get our cavalry going, just in case. You never know when you might want to have some cavalry handy. So that gives us 14 brigades right there. So I'm gonna go all veteran for all of these guys because I can afford to. I have more money than I know what to do with. Although I know it'll go fast when I start buying new weapons. These guys are about to be 2 stars. Oh, we got a major general here. That's probably unnecessary. However, let's see. Yeah, we can get some full bird colonels going here for our cavalry.
Yes, sir.
At least for the time being. Let's make sure everybody's where they need to be. I think we're good there. All right, awesome. Let's do it. That Putin version of Rasputin. Oh, I had 2 major generals commanding brigades. I saw the one. I guess I should probably fix that. Let's go back. I just now saw that. Yep, there's another one right there. Good call. I did not catch that. Alright, so I don't have quite enough. Let's do this.
Yes,
We'll
sir.
free up a brigadier general here. Okay, now we're set. On to Perryville. Rasputin was a creepy guy, like a seriously creepy dude who ended up being really hard to kill. All right, so 27,000 men to his 17,000. He's got 48 guns. I'm not going to worry too much about having a lot of artillery. We'll definitely take a lot of artillery into Fredericksburg, though. Deploy your troops around Widow Bottom's farm. That just sounds inappropriate. And wait for the advance order to Perryville. A multiplayer version of Ultimate General Civil War would be phenomenal. It would probably be all I ever played. And I would just have a ball with that. And I would definitely be playing some of you. We'd have a chance to really put our abilities to the test. I think that would just be fantastic. I definitely want to get into some multiplayer Hearts of Iron 4. So if any of you are interested in such a thing, maybe we can figure out over on Discord. Maybe we can organize something a couple of hours every week or so that we could just play. That would be a lot of fun. I would really enjoy that. Can you distract enemies with a distraction force? You know what? I do that sometimes. Sometimes if I'm desperate and I need to, I'll ride some cavalry back just to kind of pull their infantry away, even just a little bit. It does help. You'll probably see me do some of that in Fredericksburg. All right, so we're gonna I think march up and swing around here. This is interesting terrain, the way the trees are all broken up here, and I don't really remember how this goes or where he's gonna be. Yeah, pausing. You just wouldn't be able to pause, I think, would have to be the thing with the multiplayer. Not unlike playing Hearts of Iron 4. Oh, he just got his reinforcements. I'm just going to keep kind of a tight line here until I figure out what he's doing, because I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen here. Yeah, the only thing I wonder about, Joking Joker, is I just don't know how much the AI is fooled by that on this game. But yeah, I mean, it's a good strategy to go in with a small force and distract while a larger force goes elsewhere. I mean, there's certainly precedent for that in war of people doing that. It's a pretty sound tactic. Imagine having people commanding corps, not entire armies. You know, that's a lot. That's kind of like how it is on Total War with the Civil War mods, where you have a 2v2, and each side is commanding one wing of the army. And it's interesting because, especially if you don't communicate, it can be a real disaster. One side could be doing really well, and the other side could just lose it for both of you. Probably how the Union Corps commanders felt when they saw Sickles marching forward at Gettysburg. Crusader Kings 2, yes, I have played that. I'm a big fan. I'm very interested in medieval history. It's one of my favorite time periods, especially British medieval history, just because my own family was so integral in all of that. I'm descended from a lot of the leaders in the Wars of the Roses, so I've always been really fascinated by that time period. One of my direct ancestors was a guy named John Clifford, who was known as the Butcher. He's actually a character in the Shakespeare play Richard III. He's the guy who killed Richard III's brother after a battle, and may have actually killed Richard III and Edward IV's father as well, the Duke of York. Crusader Kings isn't really for history. Ultimate MMO Civil War. Nice. Build forts in a V form to let the enemy advance into it and then cut them off. Interesting. Yeah, Crusader Kings 2 is cool. And there's, again, what makes a lot of those games so great are the mods that are available. They've got like Game of Thrones mods for Crusader Kings. I mean, they have those for Europa Universalis as well. I think there might even be one for Hearts of Iron. I'm not sure. But yeah, a lot of real-life historic characters are in Crusader Kings, and you interact. You can intermarry with them. Man, where in the world is his army? I don't expect they're going to be out here. Okay, he just secured the crossroads. So I'm going to start shifting some of these guys over. I think I'll leave some skirmishers out here just to cover my butt a little bit. And then I'll bring the brigades themselves back over here for support. He's got to be close because he just secured the crossroads. I'll bring up these other guns. Maybe I'll send my cavalry this way. Rebels spotted advancing from the north. Well, of course they are, because that's not the way that I expected them to go. So maybe we'll keep Douglas over here. We'll start bringing Sherman this way. a little bit here. Age of Empires. Oh, yes, man. I played a lot of that back in the day. Oh, yeah. Surprise, Wharton. Let's get these guys up. We're going to get a couple volleys into Wharton, and he's going to disappear. He's going to take off. I think I'll bring Keys back just a hair. I don't know where he is. That's why I'm just kind of covering all my bases. The factory and resource stuff in Hearts of Iron 4. Well, I mean, it's like a lot of games. In order to build ships, for example, you need to have steel, and you can either conquer territories that produce steel, or you can trade for it. And the more you own of it, the less you have to free up, or the less you have to take up your factories to trade for it. It's just a resource management is really what it is. All right, Peabody, we got to flip around here. Total War Empire with the brother versus brother mod. You know, I may go back and do I had started a campaign in that once, but it was kind of easy. So I might up the challenge level of that and do another series with it because it is fun. That may be my next series that I start. Alright, so let's do this. Let's get up on these guys' flank, but I gotta make sure I leave somebody behind just to cover my own. Get up here on these guys' flank as well. Alright, so it looks like the majority of the fighting's up here. Joking Joker 49. There's a mod called Black Ice that makes it a lot more detailed as far as the equipment goes. So if that's what you're looking for, to get that detailed with what you're equipping, that's the way to go is with Black Ice. Robert E. Lee Civil War from Sierra. I remember that game. Oh yeah. I had forgotten about that one, but yes. And then, of course, there was a Sid Meier's Antietam and Gettysburg games, which really remind me a lot of Ultimate General Gettysburg, which, of course, has multiplayer. You know, even if they just did this game with the historical battles, not even with a campaign, it would be a lot of fun. Bring up the guns. Yeah, you know what? These are long range. These are rifled guns. I do not want to risk them any more than I have to. If I bring them too close to the lines, they'll take casualties. That's fine for smoothbores, but for my rifles, I don't want to do that. There actually is a American Civil War mod for Hearts of Iron 4. It's not been really like fleshed out. There's not a lot of work been put into it. Anschluss initiated. Yes, sir. Well, I did in fact take Austria in the modern day mod. Although they declared war on me, so it wasn't exactly the same thing. Oh, a lot of gray dead in here. Yeah, submarines, when you don't have a large navy, submarines seem to be the way to go. My submarines, they seem to be a little overpowered in my opinion. My submarines just had a field day with the surface fleets. Alright, let's see what kind of trouble we can get into with our cavalry. I'm going to kind of just keep these folks where they are for the time being. Why risk my cavalry? Oh, because I can. If this was the Confederate side, I wouldn't. But on this side, I've got 50,000 men sitting in my force pool. I can replace... I am the General Grant of this of this campaign. I risk them because I can. Because I can replace my losses and he cannot. Just got to get these guys out of the woods. Oh, I think he just got some reinforcements. Oh, here he comes. Not entirely sure what he's thinking. Come on, just keep him out of the woods. Alright. Human wave doctrine, that's right. Yeah, I want to get the supplies too. I was trying to rush these guys off so that I could get them out of the way. I'm going to send these skirmishers up just to screen against them when they recover. But what I really want are the supplies. Oh, a Civil War, Total War game would be phenomenal. I would love it so much. I really do want to play the campaign, the Napoleonic campaign at some point. And I am looking forward to this one coming out in May, this Rule Britannia. You'll definitely see me do some videos for that. Alright, we're going to wipe out that battery. Still 50 minutes to go here. I got to watch. Stuart's going to get a volley into me. Oh, okay, they're gone. I still want to get these supplies, but he's got that infantry in the way. Yeah, you're right. And, you know, honestly, AI on Total War, not too bright. Not too bright at all. Certainly not nearly as, I mean... And I wouldn't exactly call the AI on this game intelligent, but it's way better than the AI on Total War. See if we can get behind these guys. Ride down the river. Well, the Total War coming out, I think in a couple weeks here, is Rule Britannia. I think it's, I don't believe it's a full game of its own. That's Thrones of Britannia. I'm sorry. Thrones of Britannia is what it's called. It's called Thrones of Britannia, a Total War Saga. And they said it's going to be a series of Total War Saga titles. All right, we got the supplies. Let's get back out of here with that now. And I think we'll call it a day. And let me get these skirmishers out of here. No. Charge Stewart now. You know what? I'm anxious to get to, I could have there. I'm anxious to get to Fredericksburg. He's already lost about 7,000 men. I haven't quite lost 2, it looks like. Yeah, I will definitely be playing Thrones of Britannia when it comes out. I'm looking forward to that one. Man, that was a good day right there. 1,640 casualties. 7,000, probably almost over 8,000 by the time you count cavalry and artillery. That's the benefit of going in with well-equipped, well-experienced troops. All right, so I've got 54,000 men, $641,000. And now it's time to get into Fredericksburg. So I want to look first of all at the breakdown as far as the corps go. Now, the last time I played Fredericksburg on Brigadier General difficulty in my campaign, I had 77,500 infantry, about 2,200 cavalry, 216 guns. Confederates had about 41,000 infantry, 3,000 cavalry, 137 guns. I lost 13,000 men. He lost about 17,000 men. I think I can do better than that. So I can do 3 corps each with up to 25 brigades. So really here I've got to just figure out how I want to go about this. So first things first here. Yeah, we can keep them. I'm going to max out the ones I've got. Boy, we got another Major General here. So what I need to do is start replacing my division commanders with Major Generals wherever possible. There's another one down here.
Sir, yes, sir!
Alright, that's all the Major Generals that were in command of brigades. Now let's see if all my division commanders are... I've still got 1 Major General left. Oh, look at that. We got to fix that. There we go. Alright, so we'll start... when I make a 4th corps, well, for this battle, I can't have a 4th corps. I can only have 3 corps in this battle. I believe that was the case. I do need to spend some of my government points because I get 30 for this battle, and I'll be maxed out if I do that. I'm excited to eat at to get to Chickamauga. Yeah, no. I'm assuming you meant to say I'm excited to get to Chickamauga. Yeah, gotcha. I'm anxious to get to Fredericksburg. Yes, I can't wait to assault Marie's Heights. I'm not going to do that, of course. Yeah. All right. So my first corps is going to be my left wing. At Fredericksburg, the Union had what were called grand divisions. So I'm kind of thinking of it in those terms. We still have one more major general sitting here. So this will be my left wing. This is going to be kind of the main assault force on that side. Well, we can't quite go that many and keep our 2 stars. This is going to take a little bit of time getting all these units ready to go. I'm going to want some 1 stars up front because the lead assault brigades are going to take some casualties getting into those woods. Eat chimichangas. Yeah, my strategy is going to be to shift everything from Marie's Heights over. I'm going to take the center and the right of the Confederate Army is going to be kind of the way I'm going to go with this to win. All right, so this cavalry? Yeah, it sure is. And I'm going to want some cavalry over here. I'm actually going to put most of my cavalry in the, I think probably on that side. I think I'll send, on the side where Marie's Heights, which I'll make my 3rd Corps, that's where I'm going to put most of my rifled artillery. I got a lot of really terrible brigades right here. So these are 6-pounders. There's some 24-pounders right there. Those will stay in the 3rd Corps. 10-pounders, same thing.
Yes, sir.
There's some Napoleons. We'll shift them over here. Deadpool. I just saw the trailer for the second one. Alright, let's see what kind of other guns we've got here. Oh, you know what? Remember I said I've got to spend some of these. Ooh, look at those 12 20-pounder Parrots. Yes, please.
Sir, yes, sir.
Alright, so those are in the 3rd Corps. That's where I want those. However, what I'm going to do here is... my 3rd Corps is going to primarily be my cannon fodder troops. Man, it's going to take a little while, I think. Hitler's buzzsaw, the MG42. I never heard it referred to as that.
Sir, yes, sir.
Some of these units, I could probably upgrade them to at least up to lieutenant colonels here.
Sir, yes, sir.
Thanks for 200. You mean 200 subscribers? 3 heavy infantry brigades, 1 light, 1 mounted unit, and 1 artillery in the last division of 3. Let's see. Only because it's a live stream, and I don't want to leave you guys waiting. I'm not going to give all that much detail to building my force up. Primarily going to be infantry in my first corps, just because I'm going to be assaulting into those woods. All right, let's see. No, we don't need a major general in charge of the cavalry. That's for sure. Ooh, 31,000. Let's see, what else do we have here? No, I guess we'll do that. Why not? I've still got 42,000 men. And of course, this may be, you know, I'm not going to worry about scaling, but normally what I would probably do here is not fully max out all these brigades, just because I can do that back in camp after the first phase to prevent him from scaling. But in this case, I'm actually not too worried about his scaling. Alright, this is first corps here. Oh, why not? Let's get some skirmishers with some sharps. Just because we can. 25. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I'm really excited about the fact I've got 2,500 subscribers. Yeah, I had no idea what was going to happen when I started out with this. Erez, hey, have a good night, sir. I'm incredibly grateful. I started this out not knowing what it would be, hoping maybe with the time I had at home that maybe it could turn into something that could be fruitful, but also a lot of fun. And honestly, I had no idea how much fun I would have just interacting with everybody. It's just been the highlight of this for me, has been just getting to know people and getting to talk about something I'm passionate about, which is history. Because you know what? I don't have anybody, like friends that I hang out with that are into those sorts of things. So you guys have kind of become my my outlet for that. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. It means a great deal to me, and wouldn't be possible without all you guys, so thank you for that. Thank you for being a part of this. Alright, let's see. Let's get some Napoleons going here. I don't have a lot of smoothbores. I don't need a major general in charge of it, though. I'm a little short on leaders right now. I'm down to majors now at this point. Some more 10-pounders. And I'm going to shoot them over to the 3rd Corps. Alright, 1st Corps, we're going to start sending more infantry over there. Till it's maxed out. Still got 37,000 men. Thank you, sir. 1 million more would be awesome. I'd settle for 10,000 at this point. I'd be incredibly excited about that. Okay. At some point, I'm going to have to do something with that other major general. I guess we'll put him in this other division here.
Sir, yes, sir.
What other weapons? I got a lot of reboard farmers. We're not going to use those, though. I can't quite do a full brigade with 1841 Mississippis. So we'll have to do like a 2,400-man brigade. Buy up some Harper's Ferries. Just going to do 1,000 men in each one of these until I get better leadership. How many men do I have? I've got 47,000 men in my left wing, 29,000 in the center, 7,600 right now over here. I'm going to need a little more protection for these guns than that, I think. All these majors in charge of these 1,000-man infantry brigades. Oh man, you're all speaking German on me now. I really need to start getting back to my Duolingo German lessons so I can understand what you're all saying. Alright, we're almost ready to go. I'm trying to hurry this along for the sake of getting to the fight. Man, I just need leadership. And, you know, I guess I can buy up Patrick Kelly and Samuel Carroll. Get a few more decent leaders here. Of course, Patrick Kelly led the Irish Brigade. Carroll, I think, had some Ohio boys on Cemetery Hill at Gettysburg.
Yes, sir.
Spending lots of money, but I still have 20,000 men. Yeah, I could take the colonels out of the artillery. That's a good call. That allows me to go ahead and go in and max out some of these other units. I'm not going to take out of this one because it's going to drop them below 1 star. I'll go with the new artillery units, maybe. Okay, that dropped them, but that's not a big deal. All right, so we've got 45,000, 30,000, and 19,000 on infantry. So I'm up at, let's see, 75, 85, 94,000 men. I could take another 17. I may not need them. I tell you what we'll do is we'll just dive right in and see what happens. You speak pidgin English, but don't run into many Papua New Guineas. Yeah, that makes sense. So definitely, man, moved him up. He was at 1,800 up to 2,283 now. So that just tells me that he's got a lot more going than he did before. Okay, these are backwards. Hold on. First corps goes here. Second corps here. Third corps here. So it gives me 104,000 men and 180 guns, which compared to my last time on Brigadier General is significantly higher. It's a few less guns, about 30 fewer guns, but way more men. All right, so first comes the fun of crossing the Rappahannock River, and we're going to do this with some rookie troops. Of course, they portrayed this part on Gods and Generals, the movie. I think it was William Barksdale's Mississippians who were just sniping at Union soldiers as they tried to cross these pontoon bridges. All right. And I get reinforcements on this phase, and there's really not a lot to be gained by trying to cross before I get them. So I'm not going to try. So we'll just let this kind of tick down for now. HOI4, what kind of ice cream you're eating? I'm curious. Yeah, I don't need to cross. This is a completely meaningless part of the battle. And joking joker, if you're referring to the Confederate States of America, the capital was first, I believe it was first Birmingham, Alabama. And then the capital was moved to Richmond, Virginia, once Virginia became a part of the Confederacy. See, initially it was only the Deep South, what were known as the Cotton States that... Ooh, cookies and cream, fantastic, one of my favorites. The Cotton States initially seceded the Deep South. It was only after the actions at Fort Sumter and Lincoln's call for 75,000 volunteers to put down the rebellion by invading the South that the ones that were on the fence jumped in on the side of the Confederacy. Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and I think Arkansas. Up until that point, they hadn't joined the Confederacy. And of course, a lot of the South's best generals came from those states. And the vast majority, I mean, the two states that by far supplied the most troops to the Confederate Army were Virginia and North Carolina. And those were two that only seceded after the call for volunteers. I know, kind of boring to watch, but there's no point in sacrificing men needlessly crossing the bridge. Here come the reinforcements. Yeah, Philadelphia. That's where my daughter's in Philadelphia right now on a school trip. It's about 5.5 hours away from me. I live in kind of a cool area because I'm 6 hours from New York City, 5.5 from Philadelphia, 5 from D.C., 6 hours from Chicago, 3 hours from Detroit, 5 hours from Toronto. I could be at Charlotte in probably 8-hour drive. So it's kind of cool to be able to get to so many places relatively quickly. I'm just trying to get a view of him so I can at least get my cavalry, my artillery firing. Oh, look at him trying to cross. That was dumb. He's coming at me. Look at that. That's beautiful. Basically, it's a reverse of what would happen. Barksdale's coming across at me. Wow, dude. Wow. Montgomery, Alabama. Thank you, Janice, for correcting me on that. I knew it was in Alabama. I just had the wrong city. Philadelphia cream cheese. Yes, it is in fact a cheese. It's also the place to get Philly cheesesteaks, and it's where Rocky comes from. Barksdale, of course, was famously shot and killed at the Battle of Gettysburg. I think he took quite a few bullets. He was a pretty juicy target there on July 2nd. And of course, there's a U.S. Air Force base. That's another one of those quirks that some people always find interesting, is that basically, the Civil War was a rebellion against the government of the United States, and yet a lot of our military bases are named after generals in that war. We have Barksdale Air Force Base. We have Fort A.P. Hill. Fort Bragg is basically one of our main military facilities in the United States. And Bragg wasn't even a good Confederate general. We ought to at least have named it Fort Robert E. Lee or something. All right, so he's going to have 63,000 men, which is more than enough to get the job done if he plays his cards right, and if I were to stupidly attack Marie's Heights, but I'm not going to. Fort Hood, yeah, exactly. Fort Hood's another one down in Texas. All right, so massive force here that we're going to be able to bring on this side, and that's pretty consistent with historically what happened, because it was a big Union force that attacked here. I can't even select all of them at once. That's how big it is. So we're just going to get them all moving over here. This might actually be a good opportunity to assign the AI and see how he does. A lot of people don't even realize you can do that. You can actually assign AI generals to control part of your forces. And so right here, what you do is you get an AI, and you can give them different kinds of orders. You can put them in defensive mode, or you can order them to take a particular objective. Like I can tell him, okay, I want you to attack here. Actually, I want him to go for that objective there. So we'll do that for a little while. Long term, I'm not going to... Oh, no. Long term, I'm not going to let the AI control my whole second corps. But at least to get him started, we'll see how he does with that. I'm going to bring the first corps over here. Just get him moving. So I have to do some looking up, but I'm not entirely sure. Janice is pointing out that Barksdale Air Force Base is named after a lieutenant named Eugene Barksdale, who was from Mississippi. I don't trust the AI with my splendid legions. Ultimate General would be cool with this or with World War I, but I think it might be tricky because, of course, combined arms. You've got tanks, you've got air power, and all that. And I think this game, as it currently exists, probably lends itself much better to what's going on here. Land battles like Napoleonic warfare, for example. So, okay, the question about the monuments. I'm torn on the monuments. My gut reaction says I hate it. I hate that historical things are being torn down, but there's a caveat to that for me, and that is that a lot of those monuments were put up intentionally as part of the civil rights debate. They were put up intentionally by people who were white supremacists or who were just trying to make a statement. The ones that were put up by, the Daughters of the Confederacy or people who were relatives of these people to honor them, I have no problem with that. If they were put up intentionally to spit in the face of minorities, I do have a problem with that. So I'm kind of torn on that. And I do understand both sides. I can understand, and listen, obviously there is nuance here as far as the reasons behind the Civil War. It's too much of a generalization to say that the Civil War was about slavery, because that really doesn't recognize the complexity of the issues that were in play. There was a lot more to it than that, but I can understand for the average person, especially as the descendant of slaves, who would be offended by something like that. I get that. And I actually just recently discovered that I may myself be, in fact, the descendant of slaves. I'm still trying to confirm that. I know I have African ancestry. I descend from a lot of people from eastern Tennessee, eastern Kentucky, that were known as Melungeons, which are kind of a mixed race group of people who lived in the area around Hancock County, Tennessee, in the east. And at least in a couple of cases, my great-grandmother was actually listed as mulatto in the census records. As a Brit, you're all traitors. You know, Dual Taylor, my daughter's into theater, and she loves Hamilton. We're actually going to go see Hamilton, the musical, here in a couple of months. And my favorite song in Hamilton is the one that's sung by King George III. It's basically a breakup song to America, and it's called "You'll Be Back." And it's kind of cool, and you'll forgive me if I sing a little bit while we're watching this, and I know it may not come across well on here, but he basically says, like, "You'll be back, soon you'll see. You'll remember you belong to me. You'll be back." And he kind of goes on, and at the very end he says, "And when push comes to shove, I will send a fully armed battalion to remind you of my love." And I think it's kind of based on what's known as his response to the Olive Branch petition that was sent by Continental Congress. But yeah, hey, to the Brits, we are absolutely all traitors. And the only difference, really, between George Washington and Robert E. Lee was that George Washington was on the winning side. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. It's funny, you know, and I'm an American, and listen, I love the Revolutionary War. I'm a patriotic guy, but if you think about the taxes that they were revolting over, it's kind of ridiculous if you think about how minor those taxes are compared to how much our own American government taxes us now. It really was much ado about nothing, I think. And it wasn't unreasonable for us to be taxed to pay for the French and Indian Wars, we know it here, or the 7 Years' War as it's known to the Brits. Alright, so, okay, it looks like he's coming, but he's coming kind of piecemeal, and I don't like that. So I'm going to pause for a second here and remove the jilted lover. Yes, exactly. But the funny thing about in Hamilton with that is it basically is true. I mean, if you read King George's response to what was known as the Olive Branch petition, it basically was like a love letter. It was like, oh, you know, we love our subjects, and they've been misled by these terrible rebels, and if they will return to my loving arms, then I will welcome them back as a father to a son, so to speak, he said. But then at the end he says, but to those who persist in their treason, the penalty shall be death by hanging. And that was when Benjamin Franklin was said to have remarked, well, now we shall all hang together, or we will all most certainly hang separately. Yeah. Hi, John. Yeah, we've had singing and political debate. Yes, that's how I like my live streams. All right. Listen, I'm a big fan of the British monarchy. If I lived in the UK, I would be a hardcore monarchist. The hardest part here is breaking through. Once you break through into the woods, it gets pretty easy, and you don't have to push through all the way to the objective in this first phase. I really just kind of have to get it off the ground. And I just have such overwhelming numbers that he has no chance. I've got 80,000 men here to his 30. This is half of his army. It's more than half of mine. And obviously, I'm going to have to shift some of these guys over. And he's got cavalry sitting over here, so I'm going to bring my cavalry over just to be kind of extra cautious. Good night, Joking Joker. Have a good night, my friend. Oh, Whiting is getting lit up right now. We need to march him through. I'm going to start leapfrogging some of these folks. Just kind of march right through if I can. Oh, man. I should not have brought these guns up this far. A lot of units to manage here at the moment. The blue wave. Let's put it this way, John Payne. I think this blue wave is about as likely as the other one. I don't know. I don't want to get into politics, but all right, let's look at the numbers. He's probably beating me on casualties right now. He's lost about 1,000 men. I've lost a little over 2, but I expected that in this first phase. Once we break through, it's going to be a different story. The blue tide. Not to be confused with the Tide Pods. Yes, the U.S. Grant strategy. Full assault. Use my overwhelming numbers to bludgeon him into submission. Jones is a 3-star unit, so I doubt that melee combat's going to cause him to surrender, but a guy can hope. Alright, we got to get through this part of the line, get everybody into the woods. I want to visit Fredericksburg again. The only time I've been at that battlefield was I was about 13 years old. I remember visiting the place where it's called the Fredericksburg and Spotsylvania battlefield because Spotsylvania is not far from there, and same with Chancellorsville. It's all kind of one big area. And I can remember Chancellorsville battlefield better than I can remember my visit to Fredericksburg. Huge numbers, plenty of guns, that's the way to win. And use cavalry. Cavalry as a scalpel. And there's not a lot of use for cavalry, at least not right now, just because they're all in the woods and that kind of neutralizes them. But what I'll do is I'll push him down through here, and of course when the battlefield opens up later on, I'm going to have to attack over to this way. But I've pretty well overrun him at this point. And then I want to kind of swing around over here. Yes, there was a battle in Frederick, Maryland near there. Oh gosh. It was in 1864. Well, Frederick's really, really close to Antietam. It was 1864. It was Monocacy. It was part of Jubal Early's campaign outside of D.C. Yeah, Ken Burns' Civil War, definitely the best Civil War documentary to watch. Especially if you're looking to learn about the war for the first time, or to learn a little more about it. And yeah, I think there's 9 or 10 episodes. Civil War Trust has some good stuff too. Alright, we're pushing them out into the open a little bit here now. Only an hour left in this phase, but like I said, we come back to this part. So there's no need to rush ahead to take the objectives now. In fact, I'm going to shift a few units out here over this way because I do have to start marching that way to take the center objective at some point. Let's look at the numbers. So I've lost 6,000 men already. 1 gun. He's only lost 3,000, but that's okay. I'm actually going to merge some of these smaller units. Yeah, there's no... Yeah, obviously, if you think about the campaign, if one side had won every single battle, by 1863 the war would have been over, and obviously that's not how this goes. When you win every single battle, it just kind of keeps going and takes you all the way to the end anyway, and I get that. I'll send some of these units over this way. Dutch, really the only thing you need to know about the East is that up until 1864 in the East for the Civil War, it was all about basically everything happened in and around the areas around Washington, D.C. and Richmond, Virginia. The whole thing was about on to Richmond. The whole goal of the Eastern Army, the Army of the Potomac as it came to be known, and others, was to take Richmond. And so all the battles were, for the most part, fought between Washington, D.C. and Richmond, Virginia, with the exception of the 2 times that Robert E. Lee invaded the North, once into Maryland and the other time up into Pennsylvania at Gettysburg. So there really was very little shifting of the battle over more than maybe about a 100-mile area. In the West, there was a lot more to it. Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. But the Civil War Trust is a good one for seeing it visual as far as the maps of how things happened. Alright, let's start advancing a little quicker here for this last half hour. You know what I think I need to do here is ammo. Let's get everybody resupplied. I'm going to send a few more units back out over this way. New Mexico, yes. And of course there were the occasional forays into the north by folks like John Hunt Morgan. who was a Confederate cavalry or Confederate commander who took some units up into Ohio. He ended up surrendering maybe 20 miles from where I live, which is north of the West Virginia Panhandle. Jackson's Valley campaign, which some of my relatives helped to fight against. My great-great-great-grandmother had 4 brothers who were all with the 1st West Virginia Infantry, and they fought in the Valley campaign. In fact, one of her brothers was killed at the First Battle of Kernstown in March of 1862 at the start of that campaign. And he's buried at the Winchester National Cemetery. All right, this first phase is just about over with. That's where most of my casualties are going to be happening. 8,300 so far. And remember, like I said last time, I lost about 13,000 men. I'm not being quite as cautious this time around. So I'm going to take more casualties than that. But I also have a lot more men than I did last time. I've got about 30,000 more men than I did last time I fought this battle. And I could have taken more if I would have taken more time to build up the army. All right, Marie's Heights. There will not be an assault on Marie's Heights today. This was just a bloody, bloody mess. This is, of course, where Lee said it as well, that war is so terrible, we should grow too fond of it. And even here, I actually outnumber him by a few thousand men, but certainly not by enough to be able to take the objective. So we're just going to fast forward. I don't know what he's going to do beyond firing at me. I wonder if I break off some skirmishers, if I'll be able to see far enough to get my artillery firing on him. I might have to rush some skirmishers out here and risk them being shot up in order to be able to see where his units are, so I can fire on him at least, cause some casualties. Yeah, Winchester. See, Winchester, the Shenandoah Valley, which Winchester was kind of the northern entrance to, was known as the breadbasket of the Confederacy, so it was strategically really important to the Confederacy, so that was why there was so much fighting around Winchester. Alright, why is my artillery not firing? Some of them can't reach that far, I get that. Yeah, I will, John Payne. I am going to shift those units down here so that they can be in the next phase. I'm just going to wait to do that until we get a little closer, because if I get them down here, they'll be in the open and they'll be easier targets for his artillery. Alright, so I'll be right back. I'm going to go grab something to drink while I've got a minute, while everything's just sitting here. We're waiting for the next phase of the battle. All right. General Zook, move your brigade forward. I'm trying to remember, was that a line from Gods and Generals? This is where Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain gives the speech from, I think it's from Shakespeare. Hail Caesar, we who are about to die salute you. Yeah, Dual Taylor. The battle parts of Gods and Generals I loved. I wish there had been more of it. I wish they had shown more of Antietam than they did. Even in the extended version, the director's cut, they show a little bit of Antietam, but not much. The civilian family in Fredericksburg, I despised that part of the battle, or of the movie. Alright, let's see if I can get these guys out here a little bit again and get another view of what's going on. He's going to cause casualties on me with all his artillery. There we go. Now we can see some of them. And immediately they're going to come under artillery fire. Alright, let's begin the process of shifting down. I bring as much of my force down as I can. Get them all on the edge here so that the battlefield actually opens up in the next phase. So I don't necessarily have to have them down there yet. They who are about to rock, we salute you. I believe there was a movie about the Valley Campaign of 1864, New Market. I think it was called The Field of Lost Shoes or something like that. And of course you have movies like Cold Mountain, which show the crater. Which was a real botched opportunity by the Union. Last Full Measure, yeah, I'm so disappointed they're probably not going to make Last Full Measure into a book. I had heard at one time there was a rumor that Stephen Lang, who played Pickett in Gettysburg and played Stonewall Jackson in Gods and Generals, was going to play Grant in Last Full Measure. How true that was, I don't know. Andersonville, oh, fantastic. And Andersonville is near and dear to my heart. I had at least 3 uncles who died at Andersonville, all captured in 1864. They were all from Kentucky. One's name was Francis Bailey, another was Henderson Gearhart, and Alvin... I'm trying to remember if it was Alvin Blair. No, I think he died in 1862. I had a third one I just recently found out, and I'm trying to remember now who he was. But 3 uncles of mine died at Andersonville, and it was I'd love to go there. I've never been, and I want to visit there. Tough place. For those of you not familiar, think Nazi concentration camp in World War II, and the photos of some of the people who were rescued from that, and that's what Andersonville was. Now, that's not an indictment of the Confederacy alone, because the Union had similar conditions in some of their prison camps in the North. And the Union didn't have the excuses the South did when it comes to resources. Elmira, New York. What was the other one? Point Lookout, Maryland. I mean, these are some terrible places. Nobody, and you know, it was just like that in the Revolutionary War too. I had an ancestor, my 5th grade grandfather. His name was Peter Stillwagon. He was a spy for General Washington at one time. He was a sergeant in the Continental Army. Spent a year and 11 months in the Sugar House prison in New York City. The Sugar House prisons and the ships, the prison ships, were awful, and more men, or at least as many men, died as prisoners of war in the Revolution than died on the battlefield. All right. The battlefield opens up, and everybody's shifting down this way now. So we'll start shifting all of them over. We got to start bringing the 2nd Corps up. I got to be careful here because he'll have probably men up here, so I don't want to start moving my artillery without the rest. Yeah, Beeper Man, you're right. The main cause of why places like Andersonville got so overcrowded, Andersonville was designed for like 8,000 men, and they had well over 30 there. And it was because Grant put a stop to prisoner exchanges, and I understand his reasoning for doing so, but it did become a big factor in why those issues existed. Yeah, I'll keep these skirmishers back here to protect the rear of the artillery just in case. I'm going to mainly use these guys to start pushing here. The Great Skedaddle. Alright, so just to review for a second here, in order to win, I need to hold either Marie's Heights or Telegraph Road and Prospect Hill. Alternatively, you can hold Telegraph Road and Marie's Heights. So there's 2 ways to win. Both involve taking 2 of the objectives. So once I get everybody into position here, we'll start making our push up toward the objective. I'm going to bring these guys down a little further, down this way. Yeah, and there's the aforementioned surprise from the south. Well, okay. I'm going to send a 3rd Brigade down here just to be safe. Deal with this battery, get rid of them. Alright, we'll hold Paper Collar for a second. The 20th Maine attacked at Marie's Heights. They were part of the wave after wave. There were multiple waves of men who crossed over. They crossed over this little stream here and then marched up the hill against Marie's Heights. You don't get a taste for it here, but there was a hill, and the stone wall was kind of partway down the hill. And there were just several rows of Confederate soldiers, and they'd have guys behind them 3 and 4 deep, reloading rifles and handing them, so they were able to fire almost nonstop. And it was just a completely terrible excuse for an attack. It should never have happened. And what Burnside was thinking, I don't know, besides that he just was dealing with political pressure to attack. I actually don't remember where Pickett was. I think... if I remember right, it was Longstreet who commanded the left, and Stonewall Jackson was over here on the right. So I would think then that Pickett would have been over on the left where Marie's Heights was. I'm just going to keep these guys down here to kind of keep these guys occupied. Jones is going to disappear in Paxton. These guys are going to disappear pretty soon. I think, I can't remember for sure, but I want to say Paxton is the Stonewall Brigade. I'm trying to remember if that's true or not. A lot of swamp here, so it's going to be tough to march through. Drain the swamp. Hey, Paul, where are you in the UK? I am by my own admission, a huge Anglophile. I love all things England. I cannot wait to finally visit there someday. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Now, he's pretty even here. I mean, he's got 31,000 men, so I may, in hindsight, have wanted to bring more men to this phase of the battle than I have so far. But it'll open up, and I'll be able to bring more later. Right flank in the south. Bring these skirmishers back up here where they can see, because there's kind of a dark area here. I can't see what's going on. These guys I'm just going to kind of hold a little bit. Portsmouth, hey, very cool. My family, a lot of my family comes from Portsmouth, Ohio, which I have no doubt was named after the city in the UK. Most recently, my most recent relatives who came from England were from the West Midlands, around Birmingham, that area. A little town called Tipton, and one called Rugby, I think it is. All right, Kemper just kind of lit me up over here. I want to shift a little further this way. I am in the swamp, yes. Hey, there's Lewis Armistead. Yeah, so this is Pickett. This has got to be Pickett here. Because there's Armistead. Kemper's up here. I don't know if Kemper was in Pickett's division yet or not, but I'm sure Armistead was. Belfast lives matter. A lot of Irish boys died on Marie's Heights at Fredericksburg. Somebody wants me to kill Jackson. Let's see. Doesn't matter, he'll reappear. But we'll go for it. Alright, there goes Jenkins. I'm gonna hold Whiting up here just to guard my right side. Yeah, I'm gonna move the guns up here real soon. They're gonna be slow moving through these swamps though. I don't see Jackson anymore, but he may have just escaped. Of course, Fredericksburg had a important place in Robert E. Lee's heart. He courted his wife here. I believe she may have grown up in this area. She was his wife, of course, was I believe, a granddaughter of Martha Washington, maybe a great-granddaughter. I'm trying to remember. George Washington didn't have any known biological children. There's some speculation about a slave named West Ford who may have been his, or may have been a descendant of one of his relatives. But Martha Washington was previously married before she married George. And it was through that first marriage, the Custis family, that Robert E. Lee's wife descends. Yeah, the Union soldiers lay there at the foot of Marie's Heights for a couple of days, and there was actually I think it was a Confederate soldier. I forget his name, but he was known as the Angel of Marie's Heights because he snuck out between the lines at night to bring water to dying Union soldiers. I think he eventually ended up being killed later in the war. Okay, I don't want to advance any further than this over here on this side because I just need to take the center. Yeah, it looks like Stonewall Jackson's gone. I must have got him. But he'll reappear. Of course, we're not too far away from where he was mortally wounded by his own men. Alright, I'm going to hold right here. I don't want to advance on these units. They're tough. Richard Kirkland, is that his name? Okay. The Angel of Marie's Heights. I'm not as familiar with that story as I'd like to be, but I have some vague recollections of it from reading about him. Died at Chickamauga. Okay. I knew he had been killed. I just didn't know where. So he must have been part of Longstreet's men. A.P. Hill, I don't know what happened to A.P. Hill at this battle. I thought he was a division commander. I know D.H. Hill was as well. Armistead's going to charge valiantly and be butchered valiantly. Yes, I stole that line from John Buford in the movie Gettysburg. And seriously, is there any better actor to have played John Buford than Sam Elliott? I mean, is that guy not just the ultimate epitome of what a Union cavalry commander should have been? Men are starting to get exhausted now. Let's move up some more of these guns. Guns aren't going to be real effective at this point with the woods. Hey, there's General McClellan back in the rear debating whether or not to ask for more men because he probably thinks he's outnumbered by 100,000 right now. I think McClellan's probably one of my least favorite people of the war, just because he had such an ego and it was not matched by his performance in the field at all. And yet he was loved by the men. Same men who overwhelmingly voted against him in the election of 1864. Yeah, Maxie Gregg was mortally wounded at Fredericksburg. You have the scene in the movie Gods and Generals where there was obviously a rift between him and Stonewall Jackson. Jackson comes to see him in the hospital to try and make peace before he dies. Yeah, it's a joke, HOI 4, but I mean, McClellan could have probably brought the war to a much quicker end during the Peninsular Campaign if he hadn't sat there believing himself to be heavily outnumbered. And that wasn't entirely only his fault. I think he got some bad information from Pinkerton. But there was just no aggression in that man whatsoever when it came to attacking. I guess we'll move up at least one brigade here. Hey, what is going on here? Are there units that have slipped in behind me? We gotta send some skirmishers back just to keep an eye on that. The Confederates are resupplying me. I like it, Brian. I like it. They felt I was gonna need more bullets to see this through. So they've graciously provided me with more supplies. How generous of them. Alright, we've got 16 minutes. I don't have to take the objective yet, but why not try? Hey, look, there's more supplies. Just in case the Confederates feel they need to resupply me further. I agree. Dual Taylor. I love Stephen Lane as Stonewall Jackson. He's everything I imagined Jackson to be. And that's a real tragic situation there, too. Stonewall Jackson just losing his first wife and child, and then the daughter that he had born during the Civil War that he only briefly got to meet ended up dying young as well. His wife lived a long life, his widow, and never remarried, wore black, and mourned her husband openly for the rest of her life. And there's the securing of the objective, though it'll still be contested when the time runs out here. So we're going to go a little over on this live stream because we're not quite done with the battle yet. I usually try to keep these to 2 hours, but you know, Fredericksburg's a long battle, so back we go to the right. Is that Dual Taylor? That's a quote from Longstreet in the movie Gettysburg, isn't it? Graduated last in his class, quite a feat considering his classmates. All right, so now I've got to push through and take this other objective, and then also kind of let's push these guys out and then kind of redraw this line here. I'm just going to bring all the guns into the woods here just to get him out of the way. Got to keep an eye on what he's doing over here. I'm going to shift some of these units up here this way. Oh, he's gonna get aggressive now. course, Robert E. Lee finished second in his class. Never got a single demerit in all his years at West Point. Armistead surrendered. Well, at least now he won't die at Gettysburg. Although at this point in the war, he probably would have been exchanged, so he would have returned to the field. Alright, so now at this point, it's just about pushing to the last objective. Gotta watch with Peabody, he doesn't get hit in his flank. Richard Jordan, yeah. Oh, again, brilliant as Armistead. His last role, he was already dying of a brain tumor, although I don't think he knew it yet when he filmed Gettysburg. But I think he died before the movie was released. He was in Hunt for Red October. I remember him having the line, he says, "I'm a politician, which means when I'm not kissing babies, I'm stealing their lollipops." I loved him in that role as well. Hey, you know, that actually, Dual Taylor, that makes for a great question of the week. Maybe that'll be my next one. If you could sit down and have a conversation with some historical leader of the past, who would it be and why? I like that. I'd be torn, but I might be, just off the top of my head, thinking from the Civil War. At least from the Civil War, I'd probably say Stonewall Jackson. I just think he'd be a fascinating person to talk to. Oh. There we go. You lost another submarine? Yeah. That's right at the end. That's right. I honestly can't think of anything else that he was in, but I'm sure there have been other roles that we've seen him in. But that's the one that sticks out in my mind. And of course, the Tom Berenger, who played Longstreet in Gettysburg. Of course, me being from Northeast Ohio and a diehard Cleveland Indians fan, I can't help but love him in... Oh, here comes his cavalry. Love him in Major League. So if he's sending his cavalry there, then shall we send ours down? Thomas Jefferson. It's interesting. I think probably the best portrayal I've seen of Thomas Jefferson was in the miniseries John Adams, which is just phenomenal. And of course, it's played by the same guy that plays Stannis Baratheon in Game of Thrones. Greg just surrendered. Rommel, yes. Good call. Rommel would be an interesting one for sure. Very sad how his life ended up. But he's probably one of... I can't speak personally, not being from Germany. Maybe some of you Germans can speak to this. It seems to me that he's one of the few officers in the German army during World War II who's still still very highly regarded in Germany. Hey, let's go after Brockenbrough here. Hey, Bendusky. Glad you're here. Where'd you just land from? Let's go back and double check what's happening here, because he's actually kind of coming after me a little bit. Let's move up some guns. I'm going to keep Armistead over here just so he doesn't come after him. Brockenborough surrendered. Oh, and then he unsurrendered. All right. I see how it's going to be. Yeah, Hitler, I think part of getting Rommel to commit suicide after he was suspected of being a part of the plot to kill Hitler, I think part of that was to keep the morale damage that came from his death to a minimum by proclaiming him as a war hero. Rather than a traitor, because Hitler knew how devastating that would have been. Oh, Dark Knights, we got a problem. Dark Knights, get out of there. Get out of there, Dark Knights, quickly. Oh, my goodness. Run away. I don't have nearly enough over on this side, and of course my general's sitting way in the back. Yeah, Sega Prophet, I think that's pretty well it. Rommel was aware of it, didn't actively take part, but was aware of it. And I think he admitted to as much. Perhaps he would like to resupply us further. Running away with the men riding coconuts. Perhaps it would help if we run away more. I'm obscenely fond of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Alright, we grabbed. Thank you, Confederate Army, once again for supplying me. Greatly appreciated. Alright, let's see if we can wind this thing down here. Good evening, Drakith. Welcome. We're about to take the objective. Speaking of supplies, there's some more there. 28,000 sitting there. Let's take a look at the numbers real quick here, at least on this side. Oh man, almost 20,000 men lost. So obviously I've been less than cautious with my forces, but this is really going to put a hurting on his army moving forward. Brave, brave Sir Robin. He bravely, when danger reared its ugly head, he bravely turned his tail and fled. Yes, that's one of those movies I can quote every line. My favorite part is the political debate with the peasants. where the guy says, listen, strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is no basis for a system of government. Supreme executive power derives from a mandate from the masses, not some farcical aquatic ceremony. All right. About to take the objective. Yeah, Drakith, and it's about to get a whole lot worse. I'm actually into the last 3 battles of the legendary campaign. Just 2 more minor battles, and then Washington D.C. And not entirely sure I'm going to pull it off, but it's been a few days since I've done a video, just because I'm trying to experiment with some things. Just don't have a lot of resources left. McClellan's mother. I thought we were an autonomous collective. No, you're fooling yourself. We are living in a dictatorship. All right, there it is. There's the Battle of Fredericksburg in the bag. Surprisingly close in the casualties. Now, historically, casualties were like double on the Union side as they were Confederates. And I could have done that probably a lot less bloody on my side, but I'm having too much fun talking to you guys. And so I just went with blunt force trauma as a way of defeating him there. So obviously those casualties hurt him way worse than they hurt me. Didn't capture a whole lot. Grabbed some supplies. That's about it. So let's take a look at where the Army stands moving forward here. Yes, this is Fredericksburg. Like I said, historically, last time when I did this on Brigadier General difficulty, I lost 13,000 men. He lost 17,000. But both armies are bigger this time around. So I've got 30,000 men sitting in my force pool. I've got 61, 70, about 80,000 men. So I've got about 110,000 strong in my army, including what's in and what could be in. He just got 28,000. So he's still got a pretty large force, which is a little disappointing to me. But that's how it goes. We're going to be getting into Stones River, which is going to be very interesting. Thankfully, I'm on the defensive at that one. So we'll wrap it up right there. It's already been long. Yeah, we've underestimated the Union. For every dozen men we killed, they replace it with another dozen. That's right. So I'm going to wrap it up right there, guys. Not a lot to say except, once again, thank you. I appreciate it greatly. I really look forward to these times. I may throw a live stream in somewhere. If I get into a multiplayer Hearts of Iron 4 game sometime this week, I may live stream it. I don't know when that'll be, but I may try to do that. If not, right back here again next Saturday night at 6 p.m. for sure with the next phase. We'll get into Parker's Crossroads and Stones River. As always, thanks for being a part of this. Thanks for participating. Check out some of the other videos. We'll see you again real soon, guys. Have a great weekend.